Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Ni hao. Buenos dias. Buenas tardes. Heseche. Kwaba. Welcome. What up, though? This is Cafe Melange. Week numero cuatro, session numero cuatro. We keeping it light. The air is breezy, so I'm being mindful of the sound situation. And traffic is picking up. So today, I'm going to keep it simple and to do a reading. I consider first doing a reading from this joint, but it's been years since I read any of the short stories, and the short stories are kind of longer, and we're already 40 minutes after schedule, so I intend to be fairly brief today, but I'm going to show the list of the short stories here. So the short stories run about 10 to 20 pages, 15 pages, and so that can be maybe about 20 minutes probably to read aloud. So I can do that today. But this is the joint. And also I had to get to read a story beforehand to see, just to be comfortable in sharing it. So, again, perhaps for another day, God willing. So I intend to read another one of these joints. I think I was actually also considering sharing or reading the intro to the mixed anthology, written by the author or the editor. But I think I've already read that before. So I abstain from doing that. And instead, I'm doing another one of these joints. I've done one before from a sister here originally from here, Cleve Heights, 20 years ago. I already looked up the date before, but yeah, it's like 20 years ago. So this one is from another sister who is from who is from the land of the Oleon, the Paiute, California, NorCal, Oakland. Yeah, that's right. So this is what it is. I can't see if that's legible or otherwise, but we'll see what works. Now, I skimmed through this, so I get to read the whole thing. So I intend to just read it as I read, and share it accordingly. Here we go. It is titled, I Don't Like People Making Assumptions About Me. And these are the words of Jennifer Ho, who at that moment is 24 years old, from Oakland, California. Her more is of European, American ancestry, English, French, Irish, and Scottish, and her far is of Chinese ancestry, Chinese American. Ha 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 ha. So, this is what she has to say. When I was growing up, there was always the question, what are you? Or, are you something? You look kind of exotic. I still get these questions all the time, but I also think a lot of people assume I'm white. It would have been very easy for me to pass as white and just have all white friends. Most of the people I came into contact with, in terms of my education and social activities, were white. In so many ways, I could have just locked myself into that and been white. But I didn't let that happen. It was always very important for me to have friends who weren't white, in addition to friends who were. I didn't truly understand that at the time. I didn't even do it consciously. I had so many friends who were not only minorities but who also had parents from foreign countries. They came from a different culture and yet were adapting to American life
And somehow I just found it easier to relate to people like that. Looking back on my choices in life and the choices I made about friends, I just know that those were the people who I related to best. And I never encountered outright prejudice from people, but I always knew that there was something different about me. There were just these comments here and there. There were these things I experienced and knew about that they just didn't. I remember when I was 10 and I had this friend and we were in this Chinese restaurant. She'd come she'd come with me and my parents, and we were having dinner. And she said in a truly loud voice, "I think it's so sad Chinese people don't have eyelashes." I remember thinking, "What? How can you say that? I have eyelashes. My dad has eyelashes." But she hadn't ever looked closely enough. She hadn't been around Chinese or Asian people enough to recognize that they have eyelashes. They may be small, but they're there. She also didn't recognize she was talking to Chinese people. She didn't think of me that way. And I guess she thought my dad had been whitewashed by marrying my mom. When I went to college, I would meet people and hang out with them for long periods of time, and a lot of them wouldn't know that I was Asian. And when they found out, they would say, "Oh, this totally changes the way I think about you, and you're so much cooler and cooler and further interesting now." That was a shock. Why would why would finding out that I was part Asian change the way they thought about me? And why was I further interesting and cooler now? To have people just automatically make the assumption that I was white and to keep it for months and months after I had known them was truly disturbing to me. It's important for me to have people recognize that I am because what I am, because that's very much a part of who I am. And I don't like people making assumptions about me. Another reason it bothers me is because of some of the reactions I have had from people who have assumed that I'm white. I'd say, "No, I'm not white." And they'd be like, "You're not, but you are. These are white people," and they would say stuff to me like, "Why are you making such a big deal about it? Why do you care? You look white, so you're white." I've even had people say that I'm lucky that I can pass for white, that I should be grateful. I can sense that they're annoyed that I make a point over it, that I'm stubborn about saying, "Don't call me white," because I'm not. I think that it makes those people truly uncomfortable, and I think that they would just prefer that I let them think that I'm white. And that pisses me off a lot. It also makes me angry because they're very condescending about it. It's like, "Shut up and pass for white," as if it's a gift that they do this for me, like a privilege I have. That's truly offensive to me. Other minorities, especially Hispanics and blacks, notice it much further. They may not know what I am, but they'll ask me about it. They're just further sensitive to that kind of stuff, I guess. They look for it because it is further of an issue in their lives than it is in most white people's lives. I guess that's what annoys me most. People don't look closely enough. It's important for me to be recognized as what I am. Not white, not Asian. Because I truly don't feel like I'm either of those things. I'm mixed, which is something completely unique. There she is, Miss Mélanger. So that is the anecdote, the insight to share. So I'll share some thoughts about this whilst I'm at it. Um, Interesting perspective. Rather militant for a passing white woman. That's sarcasm. Uh, that's love. But rather strong words. She's angry. She's pissed off because people do that. Okay. I can understand why being identified in a way that is disagreeable and that abstains from recognizing who she is, that she disagrees with, and then people want to argue with her about her, and that's something that resonates with me. Um, hi, hi. That's something that resonates with me because I find even with people who I know for years and years, dear friends that I know for years and years, there's often a tendency of sharing opinion about me. and it being like a regular point of conversation. Like, what, why, what, who asked you to give your opinion about me? Um, Particularly on the different topics, um, and then like disagree. So I'm very fine with people saying what they think about me. That's cool, but again, it's like didn't ask. But then also, if I believe differently, there's some weight to that. Um, I had this conversation, haha, just within the past week, um, and that's another story though. Um, Another thing that resonates with me is when she talks about relating with people from other countries. A couple weeks ago at the Mixed Heritage discussion group, there's a sister again from Belize, and she talks about the difficulties that she had with talking with people, Americans, and how it's easier for her to have conversations with people from other places outside of America. Um, and there's a consideration, and I identify with that myself. I'm immersed within it, and so I kind of like get accustomed to the deluge of the barrage of the deluge. But I remember like when I was in England, there was a weight, and it's like race, ethnicity, and in many ways religion. But I think that plays a factor in many lands, but particularly race and ethnicity. It's like a heavy weight. It's a wet blanket within the within our convo that doesn't get addressed. That people don't want to don't talk about. Oh, it's controversial. It's political. Oh, it's not polite. Let's just be positive. But it still colors the conversation in very fundamental ways. And one of the reasons why that is so that's just talking with Americans. Um, and it's part of the challenge is that Americans tend to have this happy-go-lucky kind of exterior, um, and to say anything against that is like, oh, wait a minute, you're not being positive, you're not being affirmative. Oh, who wants to be around you? So that's that, um, and it's covering up the hidden combos, the backroom combos and everything else, and so it's difficult to have just an honest conversation, a genuine like legit conversation about something substantial, other than well, all right. So I reckon I that resonates with me when she talks about that. And when she says that people who come from different lands, different experiences, and not thinking about it, just like that's just where the connection is. And there's another thing about that. So one of the things about race and ethnicity within this land of America, or within the society of America on native land, um, is that everybody comes from someplace else. 99% of the people who live here are from someplace else. There and there for 99% of the people here, for everybody here, there is a history and a contemporary circumstance of affliction, oppression, genocide, um, enslavement, racism, classism, and additionally, that is part of the American identity. Um, and it's the American identity is exactly rooted within that experience. It doesn't get any deeper than that. It doesn't, because America is a foreigner, and so it's like there's no redeeming. There's an absence of a redeeming thing. Uh, America has to get outside of itself in order to find redemption. And in the meanwhile, there's riches, there's comfort, there's privilege. Privilege is just oppression. Um, Another word for oppression. Um, but it's so comfy and cozy and indulgent and intoxicating to be American. Um, so why venture for that redemption? Why trudge through that and risk losing all the comfort and luxury and riches and privilege. I'm getting a little bit in that trope. So, but that's the thing about it though. That's what it is. Um, when we talk about land titles, land claims, and everything upon which all the trappings of privilege are predicated upon, it's affliction, it's oppression, it's genocide, um, it's murder, straight up. So it's unpleasant. But that's what the American identity is founded on, and people don't want to address that readily. So we just, oh, isn't this a nice thing? Isn't this a nice thing? Isn't this a nice thing? When we're talking about the trappings of prosperity, or the trappings of material prosperity. Um, so social interaction, social relationships, even social relationships for years and years, even for generations, often only delve into the surface level of existence, um, and maybe very intellectual, maybe very intelligent, because people can immerse themselves in an occupation, engineering, medicine, law, without delving into the existential experience. But when somebody's mixed, that kind of, and there's obviously a very Eurocentric kind of um, standard within that experience of America. So when somebody comes around, and who's different from that experience and refuses assimilation within that experience, oh well, we got a troublemaker now, or at least somebody who's calling out troublemaking about what we're doing. So now, all that being said, the world is changing. The earth is changing. America is changing. Um, The world is increasingly proximate. The earth is increasingly proximate with the American experience. Um, the playing field is increasingly level. That option of just assimilating within a Eurocentric standard of America is dwindling. It's becoming less of an option, because that it's myopic. It's a mental. There are mental barriers and obstructions that hinder, that handicap people in just being effective in dealing with the rest of the world. And after post World War II, and competing against other societies and other nations, yeah, it might have been very easy to just be America, 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 love it or leave it. But today it's like, haha, there are other options. Um, and there are other proficient, prosperous, formidable options. Um, and America has to adapt to that. So it's less of a matter of inviting people or including people within the American Eurocentric standard. It's a matter of inviting and including America within the pluralistic actuality of the earth, um, and preparing the children, students, um, to be proficient in that pluralism. So, it was supposed to be light today. Haha. There's the airy breeze. But that's what it is for today. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Namaste, assalamu alaikum, shalom, zaijen, adios, te jacaris, SMP na asamu wukele ufed. I love and peace.